was funny when I saw my kinfolk on there.
Who?
Brache.
Oh, that's your. Oh, you did.
That's
say
what I
that.
said. Yeah.
Man, that's my dude. I've been going to his eating his barbecue since he was inside of a gas station.
Yep. Welcome to the Bigger Than Food podcast, your go-to source for stories that nourish your mind, heart, and soul. Join us as we pull up a seat at the table with innovators, leaders, and visionaries, delving deep into their personal journeys. We celebrate the courage it takes to make an impact and drive change in our communities and beyond. Get ready to be inspired.
Mansfield.
Yeah, you went to Mansfield, because a lot of my cousins his grandfather, they moved out to the Mansfield area.
Yeah, man. It's
and
a
so
small world.
back when Crowns was in Delaware.
Yeah, he told me about his grandmother. He even told me that he was from Oklahoma City and all that. And I'm gonna tell you a funny thing. Then we get started. I've been going to his barbecue so much, and how I get people on my show is it depends on conversation and what we talk about. And
right.
I went to his new location because it's funny. I get my nails and my manicure and pedicure right next door to where his new spot is. Okay. So I went over. I said, "Man, I've been looking for you. They didn't tell me you moved." He said, "Yeah, they hating on me. They didn't tell nobody." So I ate there, and I've been going back and forth and eating. Then one day I said, "Man, I really like how you know, I'm real pride on us as black people, our culture. We love. We have good food, good product, and then it's a hole in the wall."
Yep.
I said, "You pride on making this look right." And he said, "I'm gonna tell you something. It's funny you say that. You inspired me to do this." And I was like, "Me?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah." He said, "Man, you my biggest motivation from when I seen you starting in Arlington."
People be watching, man.
Yeah.
Keep
and I said,
attention.
"Man, I never knew why." He said, "Man," and I said, "So tell me a little bit about Crown." So I interviewed him real quick, and he told me, I said, "Man, I need you to bring me on. I need to bring you on my show." And he said, "You've been knowing me 5 years. You never said that." I said, "Because it never. I won't say you're not interested enough. You had great food. It just never triggered me."
With the why he was doing
right. And then it did. That's when I brought him on. Oh, he was nervous as shit, boy.
He don't talk like that.
No, he don't do that.
He
had
quiet.
to bring his wife with him.
He quiet.
And so she
his
had to
daddy.
do it.
His daddy.
Yeah.
His daddy like to talk. All right, y'all. Welcome to another episode of the Bigger Than Food podcast. I am your host, Apollo Woods, and I tell y'all every week get on this podcast. I always say we have some amazing entrepreneurs to talk about, and today isn't any different. Here on the podcast, we talk with entrepreneurs about their personal journey, and we focus more about what their journey, who they are, that's led to what they do. Now, some of you might recognize the face, some of you may not, and who I have sitting next to me now is Mr. Rickey Booker Sr. Now, if you've heard of Breakfast Brothers, this is one of the co-founders from Oklahoma City, got him into town. So we're going to talk about Breakfast Brothers. We're going to dig into his story. So welcome to the Bigger Than Food podcast.
Man, thanks for having me, Apollo. And, I really appreciate it. I've seen some of the things you're doing and what you got going on in Oklahoma City. So like you said, this is my background. I tell people in a heartbeat, I'm born and raised and love it. Oh, you Boomer Sooner. Go ahead.
Absolutely. All right. So what I typically like to start off with is asking people, who is Rickey?
Well, I was born here, and for some reason or another.
So you say born here, like you got to tell the geography, because people want to know like where you born at in Oklahoma City.
I was born at St. Anthony Hospital. Okay. And at the time, I'm telling my age now, 1968, and the hospital was still ran by nuns at that time, is what I was told, because I was a baby. And St. Anthony now is in the area where Midtown.
Right down the street.
Right down the street from where we're sitting at today. And I went to Dale. I was raised in Dale. First of all, the first school district I went to, we actually lived in Sooner Haven Apartments. Okay. That's on 36 and Prospect. Yeah. So my children don't even know those things and where I came from. And in kindergarten, I went to Polk Elementary. And it's right there by Sooner Haven. And in third grade, I went to Sequoia, which was a bus ride from Sooner Haven. It was a little bit farther west. Okay. And from that point, my parents decided they wanted to move from the east side. So we moved from the east side to Dale City. Okay. And I went to Dale City Elementary, Dale Crest Junior High, Dale City High School. And when I got my car, I decided I wanted to go back to the east side, and I went to Douglas High School. So, I have two alumni backgrounds, Dale City High School and Douglas High School.
Okay. So when did you graduate from? So That's interesting because I always like to figure out like what that was like, that experience was like for you moving, right? Because there was a particular reason why you go from Dale City, you're able to drive, but you want to come back where you felt like it was home. So when y'all were moving, do you remember and reflect as a kid, like what was it like? Was there an adjustment for you? Did you not like it? Did you like it? Like what led to you saying like, you know what, I'm coming back to the east side?
I'll put it this way. When I say our culture, I don't like using the word projects, but it is what it is. Yeah. Our culture of where Sooner Haven came from. My family, we all was born and raised in the Sooner Haven. My cousins, you know, it was one of the things that was in me. Yeah. So when we moved to another division. Back in those times, we thought moving from Sooner Haven to Dale City and Sutton Square Apartments was a upgrade, but come to find out, it was a complex that was filled with the black culture too. So we looked at it as almost similar to the projects in Dale City area. Okay. So it really wasn't that much of a difference moving from Sooner Haven to Sutton Square because we had some of the same mindsets and we did the same things and just in a different area. But the schooling was totally different. When it came to that, when it came to the education and what that was, and the teachers and what we had to deal with, comparison from where I came from. But elementary to Dale Crest, and then when I got to Dale City, but Dale City our culture has pretty much grown a lot in the area since. You know, that was in the 80s. I graduated in 86, so you look at 81, 82, 80 areas. Okay. And the percentage of blacks, it probably at Dale City High School probably was 30. So you got 70% that was white and 30% that was black. So our culture grew up. Some of our best friends, and some of my best friends to this day were white guys. Yeah. And then if you remember, we still had the culture that came from Forest Park. Okay. Which was the families that had
because I think Forest Park was a part of the Dale City Public Schools.
Yes. Okay. And I think it may still be this day, but those guys, you know, when we got in high school, all those guys, they wasn't riding on those buses. They was all riding in cars. So that's when I said, man, you know, I gotta get me a job, get me a car. So when I finally got my first car, you know, the entrance of school, you know, we had to go to class at Dale City, man. And when my parents, almost to the point where they moved into a district that was Douglas, and I had my car, I kept driving to Dale City going to school. Yeah. And my sister automatically went to Douglas. But then one day I just decided, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and use the district address and go to Douglas. So I'm gonna tell you, I kind of went back and forth. I was a fair weather fan, but I went to Douglas and got up in there. Oh man, it was a culture shock for me. It was different, man.
Because you started off going to high school in Dale City.
Yes, yes.
Where you were technically the minority in Dale City.
Yes.
And you came back to home, they were you the majority.
Oh man, it was I can say it was live. We was playing spades in some of the classes. In some of the classes strict, you know, I'm gonna name some of the teachers like Madam James strict, Coach Ship strict. You had, you know, Coach Ingersoll, which was the basketball coach. These was coaches. Normally when coaches are teachers, that's what they are, they just coaches. But these coaches was absolutely 1,000% strict teachers.
They had an expectation.
Yes, they did. And you know, I remember Coach Ingersoll had his class, and he was the history teacher, and he was a white guy. I had learned the difference between Columbus. You know, I'm going deep, figuring out America when it was a black guy that showed him Columbus. You know, the America. And I was like, wait a minute. So the black history part of American history, Coach Ingersoll taught us both subliminally.
Okay. Okay, so I don't know if the word would be strict then. I think the expectations were probably different at Douglas.
Yes, it was.
Because, you know, maybe the academic rigors were, you know, it's like a coin toss, it could be whatever they are, but the expectation at Douglas was different. But it almost sounds like because it was more black people and more of us as a culture.
I learned that culture on how to party and have a good time. At Dale City, the culture was you went from one class to the next class. At Douglas, we went to one class to the next class, but in the means of going to the next class, I might stop, have fun, and listen to, we might be twerking and pinching on the girls' butts and stuff and having a good time before we got to the next class until one of the counselors come out, hey, y'all need to get to class, or Madam James screaming, y'all need to get to class. So that part of slowing down to have fun with education was what I loved about Douglas.
Yeah,
so
the
that's
expectation was high. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
strict, but it was almost like you almost had that space to to just be, hey, they being kids.
Yeah.
Right. But you still had an expectation.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then and coming back to the point I had, my partners, Lee Hodges. I know I'm missing some names. A lot of people. If it came to the point that I'm getting ready to go next class, Lee might walk. Hey man, let's go get us a burger at Geronimo's at Dale City. I'm like, oh hell no, I'm not doing that. Man, we're gonna have the patrol on them. But there, I was like, come on, bet, let's go.
Yeah.
We go leave and get some Geronimo's, sit at and eat a cheeseburger. And then we might go back then. Boots was real big, so we go on the south side, which was on Central, to the boot place and get us some boots, and then go catch our last class, go back to school.
I like how you describe this because when you think about current day of what the East Side is now, right? Every time I hear people, I guess like in the mid '80s or the '80s time frame, talk about going to school, there were more schools on the East Side then. It was more going on. Like it was very active. So if you're describing your experience growing up on the East Side from your time living on the East Side in the '80s, how would you describe it?
Now?
From then. How would you describe growing up on the East Side then?
It was like a family. If we got called at Geronimo's and they knew we was Douglas students, it could have been the parents in there. Hey, y'all supposed to be in class. Where y'all at? Why y'all not in class? We pulled up at the Tom Market right there at the cross street where the new Geronimo's is now. They shut down now, and went in there to get something. The clerk in there was working. Was like, why? What are y'all doing here? Why y'all not at school? So it almost was the whole East Side back then was a family situation to where if you was doing something that you wasn't supposed to do that was unknown, they would get onto you about it. And your mama and daddy or your school teacher or truant officer, nobody had to get onto you because somebody else got community. You. And that was the whole East Side. Even we went to the store next to Prince Hall, the handy sack there to get the hot link basket. Yeah. They would say the same thing. Wait a minute, it's 1 o'clock. School ain't out yet. What y'all doing over here? Right. So we would get caught up on those things, and that was the interesting. And everything was live. I could remember now that you ask. I can remember the situation, and even how Douglas was designed then compared to where it is now. He'd see it in my mind. And Geronimo's was right directly across the street at the time from Douglas, in a little small, looked like, and it used to be a small Tasty Freeze Dairy Queen. Okay. It's probably tore down. It ain't there anymore. I mean, it was literally to walk out the door on the street. Maybe that's Francis Street and Martin Luther King. But even in the 80s, at the end of the Martin Luther King on 4th. Right. Then it was Eastern. 4th and Eastern, there used to be a club right there we used to all go to. Right on the corner. The building is still there. As you go up the bridge, it's a club right there.
So was the JFK neighborhood wasn't developed at that time?
Yeah, all brand new.
It was brand new at that time. Okay, it was brand new.
And I had a good friend, Glenn Spratt, which still lives here. His parents, his mother and them lived in the JFK, which they still had. There's quite a few people that I still know that parents still own properties, and the kids may even still own the property, but it was brand new then. So
you also got a chance to see that neighborhood being built while going to school. Yeah. So what was the talk about the JFK neighborhood? Was the talk about like, hey, this is being built for black people? What were you hearing, if you remember, about it being built? Because you got a chance to see it done while you're in high school.
And I never paid attention to it. No, because being in high school, we just seen things go up around and we never asked questions. And once it really got going, we even had students that that's where we used to go have house parties. That students that went there, so we had house parties there. And I could tell you it was actually the safest place at that time to have house parties because it was new. We knew how to act and we knew how to respect the neighborhood. So, but other than overhearing that it was for a black community, now that I think about it, now that you mention it, I never paid any attention that it was a black community.
You were young. I mean, you were a teenager. So that's that language you probably were to, but in terms of your eyes of what you saw it was the safest place to be. We could have parties, we could still do things. So you had something new that was developed, but you still got a chance to be in culture, in community, Like, where you still felt like it's safe to do.
And I got one memory, and I guess I would say this. I'm older now. Back then, I wouldn't admit it. That's where I got knocked out at a house party.
Okay.
Behind a girl by Kenneth. Okay. You know, I forget Kenneth's last name, but me and him got in the fight. It wasn't really a fight because it was one punch. Boom! I was out, lights out. I say it now because I'm grown. Kenneth, I ain't scared of you now, but I wasn't scared of him then. It's just, you know, and when it comes to the point that's another memory I have at JSK as a house party. I went over there and got into it, and poof, lights out.
So then, you know, as you started to gravitate, because at some point, years later, well, not so far later, you end up moving to Dallas area. But before moving to Dallas, where did the love for music and the spirit of wanting to own your own and entrepreneurship, where did that come from for you?
I was always into music. I always wanted to be an engineer, but I was moving too fast in the streets to slow down and try to become an engineer.
Let me set you up right, because I didn't set you up right. Okay. So talk about your love for music, because you do have a music background, being in the industry, being a part of nightlife and things like that. So for someone listening, give us an introduction of how that love for music started for you.
You know, I use a motto now, even at the restaurant, food feeds your soul. I look at two things: music and food feeding your soul. Yep. You know, it's crazy to say you can get to the point where music can help you to where you understand. And I loved music. I used to, you know, go back. I used to buy, when I first started, me and my good friend, another friend I'll tell you about, Dale City High School, Rodney Sapp. Me and him used to buy 12-inch vinyls. We used to be in competitions. We had to get the best 12-inch vinyl. Then we went from that. I started buying cassettes. You know, I'm telling my age, buying cassettes, and then I got to where I started buying CDs, and I had CDs at my mom's house, my house, and my girlfriend's mom's house. I had music everywhere. So I was in the notion I had the ear for music. If somebody came down the street in their car and bumping their music loud, I was gonna go get with my installer in Midwest City at Midwest, what is it called, Midwest Audios back then on Midwest Boulevard, and I would say, hey, look, I need you to do this, this, and that. I knew how to adjust and engineer the sound. So the love of music has been in me. It was just in me. So
it wasn't like it just became a natural thing for you, where you were picking up sound. You were. It was this creative gift given more than it was about let me train you how to do it to learn how to do it.
I never wanted to be a DJ, anything like that, to move the people in the party. I knew I wanted to be a record exec, to move the people with my artists and the sound that I created in my ear that I created. So me and
so you wanted to orchestrate the experience,
right?
Okay.
And so me and best friend I grew up with from Dale City. So I can go from Douglas and Dale City when it come to friends and people that I encounter. Name's Tony Briggs. And me and him we grew up. We were real close. We hadn't talked in a while here lately, and we created with Roy Mims. He was originally from Oklahoma City, and he went to Douglas. He was younger than me, but I moved to Oklahoma. I moved to Dallas in '94 and hooked up with Roy Mims. And Tony Briggs was already there, and he was the reason why I moved to Dallas, because he said, "Man, you want to do it different." So I moved with him. And we created a record company called Wino Records back then. And and that was Roy's idea. And we got going, man. We had a cat out of Florida. His name was that's back when the Luke Campbell and the movement with the big twerk movement, and so we signed him and got some music. They was from Florida, him and his brother Maurice, and tragically, Roy was different. It was Roy's way, and that's what it is. I learned a lot off of Roy. And then in '95, we had the tragic bombing, Oklahoma City bombing happened. So my sister was there. So I created, from that, I wanted a family memorial. So I broke away from Wino Records and created CKB Records, which that's her initials, which is Cassandra K. Booker.
So you lost your sister in the bombing. So very personal story. Very personal story.
So that connection was there. So me and Tony Briggs went and started CKB Records. And went from there. He created this record called Dirty Third, and he became the artist, which his name was Teaspoon. And
I'm sorry, I gotta stop. I gotta stop you, because you know, for Oklahomans, the bombing is personal. You know, it's So when that happened, like, what were you thinking in your head? Like, what were you thinking when it was going on, and how you were going to honor your sister going forward? Was the first thought was like, I'm gonna name my company this, or
nope.
What were you?
Nope, that didn't happen until really, logically, until almost the early part of '97, because it took me hard. Me and my sister was real close.
Yeah.
It took me hard to connect myself with that, and I was very disattached to that whole situation. Even when my mom and them used to do the memorial, you know, everybody get the shirts. I didn't want to wear my shirt. I didn't want nothing to do with none of that stuff. Press was trying to interview me. I didn't want to do no interviews. And when I finally did, one person came to me and said, "We want you to do a story that we can put in the memorial." And I said, "No, I don't want to do no interview." And then I said, God told me the light turn on. Yeah, you do. And this is the reason why. Your kids, their kids, regardless how tragic we see it enough, is going to be a part of history. So you want to tell your story of your younger sister. So I told the last conversation between me and my sister. And it's you can go look at it in the archives, in the memorial, you can read about it. So when I told that story and they published it in there, then I said, I want to go farther than that. I want to make sure everybody remember her. And I even got artists, the people that I managed. That's the logo right there. Yeah. And CKB Entertainment. It is entertainment now because I've switched it from records to entertainment, because I switched it to a management firm to where I can have numerous artists without. Because back in those days, everybody wanted a record deal, but CKB records wasn't big enough for somebody to come sign a record deal with. So I flipped it to entertainment and became a management firm. Okay. So, how you feel about it now? Oh, it's tatted on me. Yeah. It's part of me, and Dallas became the foundation of it. I did some of the biggest and some of the livest parties behind CKB, and so CKB Entertainment became the parties, scenes, the artists. Created Canvas King DJ platform with numerous guys that was already had it. I just took it and enhanced it. Canvas King Queens. We had a club which back then days called Club Pier, the biggest college night outside of before Club Cirque was there. Biggest college night outside of that. And we just went from there. And I met a kid that my daughter at the time was dating named B Hemp. Brought me this record on a Thursday night called Do the Ricky Bobby. Oh, yeah. And everybody started doing the Ricky Bobby. It's
I think it's beautiful to hear you talk about these things have happened, and they're always going to be connected to your sister. And then when you talk about the legacy of the management company, gives you a chance to talk about your sister not in the tragic way, but it's almost like, hey, this is keeping the memory alive, keeping the conversation alive. And then going even back from there, you're a guy from the east side of Oklahoma City that left to do some amazing things in Dallas. And this is what you hear this a lot in Oklahoma City. Even me growing up in Duncan, I mean, I'm gonna leave, I'm gonna go to Texas, and we're gonna move to Dallas. I was one that I moved to Houston though, but it's like moving there. Why is it for folks here that they see Dallas as an opportunity?
It's the closest thing. I'm gonna keep it real, Apollo. I never even traveled on an airplane and went to any other state until I went to Texas, being from Oklahoma City. And just like I told you early on, everybody think I'm from Del City. I'm an East Side boy from Sooner Haven projects. Period. And you're the first person that ever asked that question, who is Ricky Booker? So I've done tons of interviews and nobody ever asked me a question. Just like right now, my children just now found out where I was from. And how they did that, I was with my dad. He was inspecting this property that was on the back side of the apartments. And when we pulled up, I was on the phone like always, promoting and doing, and I looked up and said, wow. Got out the truck and my dad's like, what? And I said, I gotta do this. FaceTimed my kids in the group and showed them, hey, this is where that apartment right there, that upstairs bed, that was my bedroom, this and that, seen off in the Housing Authority. We had the apartment right in front of the Housing Authority shack, and they was like, huh?
So your kids had no idea that you East Side, born and bred, Sooner Haven is where you lived. Like, they didn't recognize those are your roots. They thought you were a Del City guy.
My son gonna say, "You ain't from the streets." I said, "I didn't say I was from the streets. I said I was born, and I lived on the east side, and that's in the heart of the east side, and Sooner Haven Apartments. No different, you know. Prince Hall is the same way. I don't think it's called Prince Hall in Sooner Haven anymore, but but that's those.
But people who know, right? That's the landmark, and I think that's what culture does, and that's what I love about us as a people, and that's also even what I love about the east side is that. You know, you understand the landmark. I used to tell people all the time, like some friends, like, "Hey, you want the best pork chop sandwich in town? You got to go to Prince Hall." And they're like, "Where's that?" I said, "It's right there on Kelly."
Go to Handy Sack, and then the other Handy Sack.
I had
was
to
in
tell
front of
them Handy Sack, right? And they were like, "Oh, like why y'all call it that?" That's just that's what we call it, right?
You know, I black-owned chicken spot back then. It was one right on the corner of 36 and Prospect, and there was one on 23rd. And there's actually a liquor store now that used to be Johnny Williams Chicken Places.
Okay.
I forget what they called then, but Johnny Williams was the owner, which he was the head guy and president over AAU basketball back then.
Nice.
Yeah, so, you know, if you ask somebody, say, okay, if you from Oklahoma City, tell me what the most tragic, scariest roller coaster it is. And not only that, I'm going to give you another hint, and it was all wooden. What was the name of it?
Yeah, you better than mine. I'm from Duncan. I don't know.
The Big Dipper. And it was right there on 36. And the right now is Metro Tech.
Okay.
That was the amusement park before Frontier City.
Okay. So this is why I like asking the questions about like people growing up on the east side, because when you Google, it's all old negative stuff. Because when you listen to the news, most of the crime that you hear on the news, it ain't on the east side. But when you hear people talk like yourself about growing up and the things that we did, it's like that is the experience that people had, and I think the younger folks don't have it, but because the community has definitely changed, right? Through gentrification, divesting, it's changed, and people are working to bring that excitement about the community back. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So I'm gonna go back to when I asked you the question about the excitement about why Oklahoma City or folks Oklahoma like flood like they want to go to Dallas, and many of them end up coming back because they didn't make it there.
Because you have to be where I felt here is I went all over the city. You know, when I say I was all over, it's like I was always trying to find something to do. I was always trying to sell something. I always kept a job. In those jobs, I was always prospering on those jobs. I worked for Scott Rice. I was the first black guy that was operations manager for Scott Rice. I worked for Mr. Steve's. I was the first black guy that became the store manager. Then I turned around and gave my other friends jobs. Tony Watkins, he was from Kerr Village. I can't even say it now. Tony Watkins, which he made a career out of it and moved to Florida. He done a lot of things. And if you feel like, I feel like I kind of was drowning, that I wanted more. Not that Oklahoma City couldn't give me more. And when I went to Dallas, it was like huge. And it was fast, but once I got in that what I call the fast lane,
it wasn't really all that big.
Everything started clicking. Everything that I know that I could do, what I wanted to do, just started coming, and it wouldn't stop. And to this day, the people that come back really never was visionaries anyway. They were just people that was wanting to do something because their other friend or somebody else seen they did and come do it. So, you know, when coming back to Oklahoma City, I come back because this is where all my family is. I come back and visit, but me coming back to do anything, I said if I ever came back, it was because I was setting up another business, buying some real estate property, anything that had to refund to reflect to me of what my mindset was, because I love Oklahoma. And people find out in Dallas, that's where I was from. See a lot of people in Dallas. A lot of people from Oklahoma City, Arkansas, Louisiana. They all come there. And like you say, some last and some don't because it's too fast for them.
So when I think about, so can you see now how your experiences in Oklahoma City on the east side and all what you've done set you up to be successful in Dallas? But that's not the question. When you got to Dallas, what was the point where you started to realize, like, wait a minute, I'm actually good and I do that better than them. I found my place here.
This is what I did at every job I went to. When I got to Dallas, I took a resume and showed at Frank Park Chevrolet, which is in Irving. Showed him my resume, showed him my background, and the manager looks at me, pushes me the resume back and said, "You got too much experience." You know, coming from Scott Rice, operations manager, Mr. Steve, store manager, and created these stores. And I'm gonna tell you how when I went to Mr. Steve in Dale City, it was on 29th and Sunny Lane in the shopping center. They had, back then they call it BOR, which was customer base. They had like 75 customers for that store. And they wanted to build that because Dale City was a community that's growing. And I'm gonna get back to what you're saying. So what I did is I was always the individual will go find how to increase the value of something. So I'm sitting there one day, I was a delivery driver there, then I was delivering washing drivers, then I became the credit manager and I started calling, we probably had about 5 people that was customers from that was in the Air Force. So I calling them back and forth and calling them back and forth. And then one day the regional manager came in and said, "Ricky, we like what you're doing. You collected on old accounts, and we want to make you the store manager. What would you do different?" And I looked at him and I said, "First of all, you got Dale City and you got Midwest City. What's separating those two suburbs?" And he was like, I said, "You the regional manager. You go to every store." And I was young, of course. I think I was 20 years old. And he started laughing. I said, "The military base. You make me, but this is what I want. If you make me manager, this is what I want money-wise." And I told him, I don't remember what it was then. I want this. He said, "Man, that's a lot. That's more than I ever gave a store manager." I said, well, I can sit here and be the credit manager. I ain't doing no tripping. Because I already know if I move into the store manager position, it's a lot more responsibility. So this is what I need. Right. And then he said, "Okay, now you told me what you need. What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to go to the recruiting office in Midwest City. I'm going to talk to the recruiter. And I need y'all to create me a trifold pamphlet for Mr. Steve's." And he said, "What's that?" I said, "I want you to create packages on wash and dryer, living room set, dining room set for apartment packages. And you have apartment, we have prices, and maybe it'd be $30 a week or whatever." He said, "Okay, cool, create that." So he created and made the pamphlet. This was a month later. Went and seen the recruiter. I said, "Hey, when y'all recruit and they move into the city from wherever state, where do they get their furniture from?" He said, "Well, right now, no, we're not." Slid him this. I said, "Hey, what if I give you incentives, part of your recruitment?" Everybody they see. And he said, "That's a good idea because we've been looking for it. So now here's the packages, and every time they come to the city, we deliver it to the apartment that y'all setting them up in, and that's what they pay a month." He said, "Cool." Took that store from 75 customers to 375 customers.
So okay. Now we talking business. We talking about market development. You were 20 years old at that time?
20 years old.
20 years old at that time. Where'd you get the experience to understand how to find an opportunity, negotiate what you wanted, and be able to deliver that value in that time at 20 years old?
When I tell you this, people are going to be like, "Man," and I am a true believer that God, He gave me the vision. I stay in the driver's seat and He stay in the passenger seat. If I look right or left, or in my rearview mirror, I don't got warrants, so I don't look in my rearview mirror no more. So technically, sometimes if you worry about people's opinions, it'll get you distracted from what your visions are. And when I get onto something, it's almost like I get addicted to making sure that it works. And then I even helped the credit manager when I created that customer base, because the credit manager was starting, these military people were starting to get behind on their payments. So that affects the bottom line too. So I went all the way to the CEO, the commanding officer at Tinker Air Force Base, and said, "Look, how can we get these individuals? We set up with your recruiting office and we got better plans where we're helping each individual come in with families and get furniture." He said, "I always wondered how they were doing that." He said, "Contact me on every individual that's late behind their bill." And I said, "Cool." So we set up that time and we would contact them and go because at that time it wasn't really emails, we had pagers, it wasn't really big. So we would deliver to his assistant in his office these sheets where everybody was late, and their office would call them and get on their butts. And after that, we had no more military people that was late because the CEO had set the standard. And they structured and system buying. So to answer your question to the point is, I find out what a resource is. Nothing against the workers. I want to talk to the workers because they got to get permission anyway. I won't talk to the boss.
Who making the decision?
Who make the decision?
Who makes it?
That's what I do. My friends used to always say, "Why you out? How you get the jobs you get?" I said, because I always go to the places that we think that we can't get a job.
Yeah.
I said most of the time they're required to hire a minority. We just don't go because we think it's a company designed for certain things. And then when I get in an interview, Apollo, I look at you, say you interviewing me.
Okay.
And in your office, you got golf, you got your kids playing soccer, your daughter's a cheerleader. You sit down and say, man, your daughter's a cheerleader? How did she start cheerleading? Man, you play golf? I like that. And I start talking about you.
Yeah.
And by the time we get done, you forgot about the interview and you gave me the job because I stroked your ego.
So, my background is sales. And, the first step to closing a deal? Building rapport.
Building rapport, yeah.
That's the most time, you'll spend the most time, the longer you build rapport with somebody. Yeah. Because people rarely ask them the question about who they are as a person.
Right.
You be in there, like they're literally people have an office, they showcase the things that they love. And folks that are in a one-track mind that care about business, they don't take the time to look. If I talk to this person about what they love, which is why starting off in the podcast is I wanted to ask you questions about who you are, because we don't often talk about who we are, especially when you do.
I may never even open all the way up about the East Side and my memories if you wouldn't have asked me that question. You would have just jumped right into what I got going on the future now. You would have never known about the past.
People probably want to talk about music. They want to talk about the restaurant. They want to talk about you being on TV. And those to me those are great things to talk about. But what I recognize in even the work that I do, people rarely ask me about Apollo. Like when you said, when I asked you that question, you said God, and I was like, I got it, because the only reason why I came here because I was offered to come to Oklahoma, and I said no. I was doing well in Schlumberger. I was #1 in the Western Hemisphere. I'm in line. I was about to get President's Club and all that stuff. Boss asked me, and I said no. I got sick the same day. When I said yes, I was no longer sick. And a few hours later, so I get that. Back to think about why people leave and come back. I think you can make it in any city, no matter where you go, if you're going with a purpose and a plan.
Right.
Could you travel? Do you see people? Do you think people have this idea that stuff that's happening in Oklahoma City, from the black perspective, is it only happens here, that it doesn't happen in other places?
It happens everywhere. And the reason why it happens everywhere is almost like, I've been told this a long time ago. If you want, I won't even just say us. If you want these days, if you want an individual not to know something, put it in the book, because we're just looking at the pictures.
Yep.
We're not going to read nothing about it, and we're going to miss something because we're just looking at the pictures. So,
or like you said, don't show up, don't go to the places where we think that we're not supposed to be. But I was questioned by a mentor years ago. He said, but who told you that? Who told you didn't deserve to be there? Who told you couldn't go there?
It's almost a mindset of how we were raised, depending on each individual in their house, how they were raised. Because in the beginning, I was raised to get a job, have a savings, pay your bills. And I kept doing that. I was like, man,
is that it?
It's got to be something else. Yeah. So when I learned the financial literacy to a point of get a job, pay myself, then use that money to do something else, and then eventually got to the point where I can start using somebody else's money to do the same thing. We was raised to, if you max your credit card out, you pay the minimum. If you max it out at $3,000 and the minimum payment is $175, and you look at it and you be like, okay, I'm gonna pay that, and you pay it on time, and you look at your credit the next month, it don't move.
Don't move.
Okay, if you put $3,000 on all your bills as just your overhead for the month, you put $3,000 and you put it on ACH, and at the end of the month you maxed it out with that $3,000, but you still had your $3,000 hard cash, pay it back to zero. Next month, boom, if it paid it on the bill cycle, and it shoots your credit up 25 points. Because I learned you're using your hard cash, but it's still your cash, right? And you're making your own money work for itself. And even if you get a credit line, I go to the point of getting a credit line. One time, when I was building my credit, the lady said, well, all we give proof for is $1,000. I know that's not much. I said, yeah, that's perfect. She looked at me. I said, thank you. Left out, went on my app, transferred $1,000 to my personal account. Didn't touch it. By the time the billing cycle came back, transferred it right back to the balance back and put it back to zero. Find out to a billing cycle. The next month, credit score shot up 15 points. Kept doing it, and we won't talk about what the credit line is now. Yeah. But that's my point. We only was raised to get a job, have a savings, and pay our bills.
And I think that's where for our parents are showing us what they know.
Yeah.
But when you get around other people and you build a more expansive network and know people, you learn things new. Because there's this assumption that because someone's white that they know a lot. That's the assumption. Because I've been around a lot of people, and many of them don't know more than what I know. But they have an experience that I don't have that can help me and I can help them. But diversifying your experiences and people you grow more, so you see things different. Now I know you got a hard stop here in a minute to go, but I want to get to the restaurant. So in the restaurant, why did you decide to open a restaurant? Here you are, music background, sales background. I can see as an entrepreneur why, but why a restaurant? Why Breakfast Brothers?
Okay, I made a living being an entertainment manager, having nightclubs, doing big parties, and even got a custom car shop and had a custom car shop with some professional athletes. Made a living doing that. But I always cooked big Thanksgiving feasts in my house, and all their friends would come. I used to do a barbecue, 4th of July, all the family come down from Oklahoma City. When my mom was still alive, did all that. I always cooked, loved cooking. And one day we had the opportunity to get into the entertainment business, strip club business.
Okay. In Dallas?
In Dallas. And when I'm going to tell you this name, you're going to be like, wow.
Look, the first one I went to was in Dalworth.
Dalworth? I already know which one that is.
Street.
Yeah, I know exactly which one, that was the first the hot spot, the little bitty spot. But boy, it used to be popping. 14. Yes, it used to be popping.
I'm grown now.
Yeah. King of Diamonds. Yep. I was one of the partners of King of Diamonds, and it didn't have a kitchen in there at that time. And we put a little black trailer. We bought a barbecue trailer from a guy out of East Texas, an older white guy. He delivered it. We put the electrical and had it stationary. I
heard some legendary things happen at King of Diamonds.
Yes, we used to have that club rolling, and we had a little trailer and created a small menu, and we had some cooks in there in the beginning, and it didn't do very well. When I was looking at the numbers, I said, hey man, we just paying people to cook in here. This ain't nothing. And they always wanted me to cook. Well, you cook. We keep telling you to cook. I'm not doing that. I'm not going in there and doing this. I'm not doing it. So after the third, fourth month, we was losing money. I said, man, we're losing money on this. We're not doing it. If you know so much, why don't you go do something about it? I said, okay, cool, I will. Went out the back door, went downstairs, went in the kitchen. And at this time, the cooks were just sitting there chilling. Nobody wasn't buying that food. I said, you and you and you, out.
You got to go.
Yeah. Locked it up. I went back upstairs and off, and they both were sitting there laughing. I said, what's so funny? We knew if we made you mad, you would do something about it. So I said, okay, cool. Y'all got me. Hired 3 more cooks, designing a week later, put together, design the seasoning, the food, this and that. Start cooking it my way. Took off. People was lined up there till the sun come up buying the food. Because, it's my background from Oklahoma City, chicken, catfish. And I took every element and piece from my grandmother, my mom's sisters, my mom. Yeah.
But were those things on the menu already, or you changed the menu and added those things?
Those things was already on the menu. It was a small menu, catfish basket, wing basket. They was already on the menu. I took some things off that didn't make sense and created around it with a little bitty 5x7 menu, and that's probably made 10 to 15 items on it, and we started at that point.
Okay.
Created my own seasoning, wing sauces, all of that, and it started moving. And
what year was that?
2017.
Okay, so 2017.
And at that time, King of Diamonds, the landlord was wanting to do something different. So we had to move out of the building because he was selling it. And when we moved out, we got another club that we had bought in West Dallas area called Pink Lounge. So we put the trailer behind there, and it did the exact same thing. They just followed that trailer and took off. And by this time in that area, it was a HOA, a homeowner association. They were getting upset,
so
calling the city's owners, all them restrictions. So they started sending code and compliance. They would come and start inspecting us, and they said, "Man, y'all running a tight club. Y'all just got a lot of we got a lot of people coming." And then 2 months later, another inspector came and did the same thing. And this time he didn't go out the front door like the other one. He went out the back door. And as he was going out the back door, getting ready to get my green tag, he looked to the left and said, "What is that?" I said, "Oh, that's where we sell our food out of." And at this time, granted, we just cooking good food. I didn't know nothing about no permits. grabbed the green tag back, went over there, and the inside of that trailer was in there 30 minutes. We was like, what is going on? Came out, shut it down, don't open my, you can't do this. I'm surprised nobody ain't ever got killed in that thing.
Yeah.
Wires hanging out of it, it leaked when it rained, doors open, propane tanks out of it. We just cooking good food and people was coming. And when he shut it down, the numbers started declining. And at the time, my girlfriend was like, you know, DG's was another strip club in Dallas. They got a kitchen, and he don't want the kitchen no more. He finna shut it down. So I went and talked to the owner and told him, he said, this is the food, you responsible for this? Everybody's talking about this. Yeah, let's do the deal. So I subleased this kitchen. Went in there and set it all up, had my staff, and started cooking in this kitchen using his way. Took off people's.
So you're starting to realize the connection between food and experience.
Yes.
Of how food facilitates that. You made some changes, seasonings, flavors, so people probably felt like it tasted like home or something more familiar. But then it became like, okay, if this food, the food was good, but the experience they were getting, that probably nostalgia, those memories, on top of they're at a club or a nightlife and having a great time too, those two, that food and culture experience came together.
Yes. Yes.
And it reminded me, you know what, of what you said of why you went back to Sooner Haven. Moved to Dale City, but it's something about you were missing that you wanted or gravitated to Sooner Haven.
And didn't even know it.
Didn't even know it, and came back and went to Douglas. And then, so I just pictured that. I'm not saying that is true for you. That's what comes to my head.
It makes sense, and that's exactly what it was. One of the ones to where I had got so. My entrepreneurial spirit started moving so fast to where Dale City school became not fun to me anymore. Because all we did was study, and you know, I was 3.5, could have been a straight A student. I had psychology, I did all of that. And when I got to Douglas, it made me, school was fun again. The people was around it, you know, the names, I tell the names, Patrick Bradley, Eli Powers was a good friend that when I first got there. And, you know, at the time I was trying to court Shereen Bundage, and, you know, she had a boyfriend at the time. He was a top basketball player. So as soon as I walked in the door, guy had on Guess jeans with the penny loafers on. You know, I was dressed clean. Everybody was like, who is this dude? with the Wave Nouveau Jerry curl. So, you know, I instantly clicked with the culture at Douglas because of the way I moved.
I mean, but the variables, like, they were just so different. Like you said, it was stagnant where you were. So many things were going on, but you still had to be responsible and handle your business. So when you're running a restaurant, there's a lot of moving parts, and you have to have someone operating a business that could be the captain of that ship.
And the thing that I didn't tell you, I was a football player. So I was a star football player growing up in Dale City. I was a fullback and defensive end. At one point in time, I played both ends of the football. And Vernon Brown was a good friend of mine. He went to OSU and played with Barry Sanders and Thurman Thomas. He was a third back. And when I was defensive end from elementary to junior high to high school, I was on Mike Gundy was the quarterback on the other side, and I was a defensive end, breathing down his neck. So I came from that, and then when I went to Douglas, I tried out for football, but I wasn't give a chance because I was a new kid on the block, and I quit football and started doing what I'm doing. I started doing what I was doing, but my background was in sports. I wrestled, played football, and threw the shot put in track.
So when you think, when I hear you say all this stuff, it definitely sounds like you took all of those life experiences and you packaged it into something that you love, food and culture. You named a company after your sister. And it definitely seems like as you're moving, all these moves are methodical and strategic. It's not just like throwing stuff up there and seeing if it'll work. When you found a recipe that tastes good, like, why change it? Let's keep doing that thing. And so I think I know how you're going to answer this question. Do you remember the moment in the time when you recognized, like, this is what I'm supposed to do in my life?
It's what I was saying earlier. When you can do everything in your life to make a living, you do that. But when that light turn on, opens up for what you really supposed to be doing, it seems so much easier. When I seen that and I seen how people was gravitating to the food and that experience, because I love people being happy. Even when I used to cook at home, I love when my kids, you'd be like, oh man, daddy, this spaghetti is bomb. I like that. That's where I get my energy from. And then if just right now, if I leave here and say, man, I sure want me some meatloaf. I cook a meatloaf, it's the best damn meatloaf that day, because that's what I wanted to do. But somebody asked me to cook a meatloaf, I cook it, it's cool. But so what I'm saying is, the moment that I knew from, we call that trailer the Little Black Shack, from that Little Black Shack to where Breakfast Brothers is now, to where God has created my vision to become generational wealth, possibly, is when I say, you know what? I stopped focusing on the music. I stopped focusing on the parties. I stopped focusing on the custom cars. And I started focusing 1,000% on Breakfast Brothers. The brand, the energy behind it, the consistency, building from that little black trailer to a corporation, to where it looks like it's a franchise and it's ran solely by 2 black entrepreneurs.
Love it, love it. I got one final question. Why would your sister be proud of you today?
Because the thing is about it, I used to always tell her, man, go home. We nicknamed her Wonder Woman. I'll tell you this quick story, because she followed me everywhere. We were so close in age to where she wanted to do everything I do. She was proud of her brother. And we used to jump out the windows at Sylvan Haven, and we practiced on it. You know, crazy to say, if the police ever come, man, how will we get out of here?
Barrel roll.
So all me and my cousin them used to jump out the 2-story windows. And one time we was out, after we did it, we was all sitting down there laughing and joking. Next thing you know, we heard boom. We looked around, it was my sister. She hung out the window and let go and landed on her back. And they had to rush her to the hospital and all that, and I felt that falling out there. And we found out she was okay. We nicknamed her Wonder Woman. You went in the hospital and they gave you a new back and put you a metal rod in your back and made you Wonder Woman now. But long story short, she would be, and my mom, she's no longer here either. They both would be super proud of me, because even when they were living, if for some reason or another I was the best thing to them, they looked up to me then. And my family does now, and I'm very humble towards it. For some reason or other, when I was growing up as a kid, you know, people always had that uncle or that auntie that was super mean. None of my aunties and uncles was ever mean to me. They were mean to other cousins, but for some reason I always got a pass. And my dad told me that one time my grandfather, when I was young, looked at me and said, he's gonna break the cycle. My grandfather's name owned the Country Club, Uncle Joe. The Country Club, anybody from Oklahoma City they know, the Country Club is the longest lasting Jew joint from the 60s, probably all the way to the 90s, right there on 23rd and Bryant. After our spot, everybody went to was the place. People go, I'm telling it now because it's close, people go gamble.
Is that the place that Ike and Tina Turner performed at?
Long years ago, but
it was years ago though.
But I don't know. It's actually the Del Rancho now. Del Rancho is closed, but it's the Del Rancho spot. But people from all different states, Kansas, Arkansas, Louisiana, all used to come there just to gamble. And my grandfather and his brothers all owned that spot. And everybody knew my grandfather, his nickname was Hoppy. That's my grandfather.
All right, seriously, last question. Why are you proud of yourself?
The kid that came from the east side, I'm gonna repeat that because people don't know. Now you know, from the northeast side from Sooner Haven, is sometimes you look at it to where I was involved in a lot of things. I never was a gang member. I was friends with a lot of gang members. Never was a gang member. I always figured out how to create businesses. Supply and demand was always in my mind. So I'm proud because I overcame some things that I had going on in my life as my younger days to where I am now, to where I can look at myself and knock on wood and see that I never went to federal prison or penitentiary for some of the endeavors that I was around and may be involved in those times. So I'm proud of myself to where I finally got obedient and listened and got disciplined to what God was trying to tell me all along. years and years and years. People will say this, man, God talked to you. You can't physically say, hey, Ricky, this and that. And what I'm saying is, it's like the Looney Tunes cartoons. You had the devil on this shoulder and you had an angel on this shoulder. Angel didn't say much. Right. Devil was always trying to get you to do something. Reason why I feel, this is my analogy, my opinion on that devil and the angel. Angel was always there to protect you. It was just the particular time when you finally look at her and say, okay, I'm ready. Then next thing you know, you got two angels and you're just going in the direction that the devil can't stop no more.
Right. I love it. So somebody wants to find you or and support your business, the Breakfast Brothers. How can they find you? And someone, hey, maybe has some entrepreneurship questions from the East Side or wherever they're at. How can they get in contact with you?
The first thing, which is special too, used to be you'd say, Google me.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, man, what is they talking about? But actually, you Google Rickey Book and Breakfast Brothers, it's all over the place. It's generated a lot of form and fashion. And if you just want some consolation one-on-one, you can go to breakfastbrothers.com and click book with Rickey Booker, and it'll tell you the things that they do. And if Breakfast Brothers, you want to see what's going on, you can just go to all the social media, Breakfast Brothers, at Breakfast Brothers. And also, we got a TV show that comes on in Houston, Oklahoma City, and Dallas at 10:30 every Saturday. CW 39 in Houston, CW 43 here in Oklahoma City, CW 33 in Dallas, and Hulu Live and YouTube TV.
Yep,
so
that's a big deal.
You can get me. I'm easy to find.
Well, man, I appreciate you coming on the Bigger Than Food podcast and sharing your story. I learned a lot about you, and I love the passion that you have of or actually and focusing on things that you care about. Yep. And in that, you never left the memory of your family behind.
Never.
There's always, as you were talking, there's a trace to your family and friends, which feels like that you really prioritize in your life. So I love to hear those stories.
And Apollo, I appreciate you having me, and I'm glad you reached out to me. And you're doing some amazing things in Oklahoma City and for Oklahoma City. They just don't know it yet. Yeah. So, and I'll say this last thing. Ex-Cowboy player Nate Newton told me, if you don't love what you do, like something about it, or don't do it. But I love what I do.
That's a message right there. All right, y'all, you can make sure that you subscribe to, if you haven't seen this live, which will come out on the next episode, on episode 31, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Bigger Than Food. Turn on those notifications. So subscribing and turning on those notifications helps grow our brand and hear these amazing stories like the brother sitting right here from the Breakfast Brothers. I promise you need to make sure that you find a way to get to Dallas. You're also in Houston as well, to go to the restaurants and try some of that amazing food. We love the story that we heard today. And like we always say, our mission is bigger than food, and make sure you're intentional about how you support a Black-owned business today. Thank you for joining the Bigger Than Food podcast. We hope you found inspiration in stories shared today. Remember, it's the courage to take action that drives real change in the world. Be sure to subscribe to the Bigger Than Food podcast for more conversations with movers and shakers who are shaping our tomorrow. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep making a difference.